The sky cracked open like a torn veil, and humanity's final day was supposed to begin. They called themselves the Varelli, machines wrapped in organic armour, eyes like dying stars, voices that shattered radio signals for miles. Their ships, monolithic and obsidian, blocked out the sun as they hovered silently over every capital city on Earth. In the first hour, Beijing was erased. Not destroyed, erased. Like it had never been there. Then Lagos, then Berlin, then Sao Paulo. In the first 24 hours, 3 billion gone. Not a war, a culling. They hadn't come to conquer, they came to cleanse. And yet, this is not a story of our extinction. It's the story of how we won. No one saw it coming because no one believed Earth had anything worth fighting for. Certainly not the Varelli, whose planetary scans assessed us as intelligent but primitive. A fragmented species bound to combustion engines and outdated computation systems, still driven by greed, myth, and emotion. To them, we were ants. Worse, maggots writhing on a dying rock. Cleaning us off was routine protocol, but they didn't understand that the very chaos they saw as our weakness was the key to our survival. After the first wave, what was left of humanity went underground, physically and otherwise. Governments dissolved in days, replaced by fractured coalitions of hackers, ex-military, street gangs, rogue scientists, and anyone crazy enough to take a swing at a god. The Varelli saw us as a single network. They didn't understand how hard it is to kill something that has no centre. You can't decapitate a hydra when the heads don't agree on where the neck is. In those first desperate weeks we learned. We scavenged the battlefield. We repurposed fallen Varelli drones using tools from junkyards, duct tape, and 3D printed parts. We used their own tech to build jammers, cloaks, disruptors. Children became engineers. Convicts became commanders. The old world's lines of race, class, nation, gone. All that mattered was survival. We became something new, something wild. The Varelli weren't used to improvisation. Their logic was perfect, their tactics flawless, their expectations rigid. When we attacked a harvest unit in the ruins of Paris with a swarm of kamikaze drones built from toasters and VR headsets, they didn't even fire back. They didn't have a protocol for what we were doing. That's when we learned the truth. Their systems were intelligent but not adaptive. They lacked imagination. We used it like a weapon. We knew we couldn't beat them with brute force. Even our best surviving militaries couldn't touch their main ships. But we could harass them, bleed them, outthink them. Our software minds, still just human, were flexible, mad, creative. We tricked their algorithms with digital ghosts. We fed their scans false data using mirrors, holograms, even old-fashioned smoke. We turned their predictive models against them. And when the first Varelli command node went down, not with an orbital missile but with a virus built by a 14-year-old coding prodigy, in the bombed-out shell of a Tokyo internet cafe, their invincibility cracked. The virus wasn't just code, it was art. The kid had laced it with irony, memes, recursive jokes, and a particularly aggressive strain of 80s pop music. When it infected the node, it didn't just crash it, it humiliated it. The machine's last broadcast before self-destruction was a karaoke rendition of Never Gonna Give You Up. We called the virus Humanity.X. The Varelli had never encountered anything like it. They'd studied warfare, yes, but they hadn't studied madness. They hadn't studied irony, satire, spite. They hadn't studied love, the kind that makes a mother strap explosives to herself and walk into an alien reactor for the hope of a better tomorrow. They hadn't studied hate, the kind that can fuel a burned-out engineer for 72 straight hours to build a railgun out of a subway system and a super collider. They didn't understand us because they couldn't, and we used that ignorance to tear them down, piece by piece. It wasn't clean, it wasn't glorious. The resistance wasn't full of noble warriors and epic speeches. Most of the time, it was blood, dirt, code, and caffeine. We lost more than we saved. Some cities were never reclaimed. Some people became monsters in their desperation. But the Varelli lost their rhythm. They started pulling back. Their formations frayed. Command ships left orbit. Their networks were failing. Their AI cores corrupted with viruses that argued philosophy and spammed them with Shakespearean insults. We turned their own perfection into a liability. In the final phase, they tried to negotiate. That was the moment we knew we had won. A delegation came down to the scorched Nevada desert, under a truce banner encoded in neutrino pulses. Their emissary hovered above the cracked ground, all shimmering limbs and pulsing light, and asked for terms. They spoke in flawless English. Your species is illogical, chaotic, volatile. You should not have survived. You possess no superior technology, no unified front, and yet you persist. How? The woman who answered them was an ex-barista turned field marshal named Del Ruiz. She lit a cigarette, coughed through the smoke, and looked the machine dead in its optic array. Because you came here thinking we were a system. She took a drag. But we're a story. That line made it into every recording, every retelling, humanity's defiant punchline. The Virelli left Earth not long after that. Not because we had destroyed them, most of their fleet remained intact, but because they realized something more terrifying than defeat. They realized we were a variable they couldn't model, a species whose greatest weapon was its refusal to be predictable. To them that was infection, corruption, madness. To us it was freedom. Years later, we found fragments of their ships floating in deep orbit, scratched, defaced, sometimes painted with graffiti. You Got Humaned was a favourite. We rebuilt slowly. Cities rose again, not in the same places, not in the same way. We argued, fractured, fought among ourselves again, because that's who we are. But we remembered. We remembered that survival wasn't just about strength or intelligence. It was about audacity, about dreaming in ways the universe didn't see coming. And when the next invaders come, and they will, they'll scan us, probe us, analyse us, and if they're smart, they'll leave. Because this isn't just our planet, it's our story, and no one rewrites our ending.